Hello, everyone. This is Lee Andrews with Akathame, and today I have a very special guest. Her name is Ruchi Dwivedi, and she is an Agile coach. And for those of you who are recruiters, for those of you who are not familiar with this term, we're going to talk about what that means today. We're also going to be talking about the impact of an Agile approach or methodology within an organization, especially those who are still considering moving from Waterfall to Agile, and the impact that an Agile coach can have on your organization. Before I begin, I do want to introduce that Akathame has recently opened up its services to represent executive and direct hire candidates. We are looking for exceedingly qualified clients to add to our curated pool of candidates. So if you are looking for someone with a certain degree or competency or outcomes in their portfolio, we are happy to talk with you. And if you are a candidate looking to make a hire and you have an impressive portfolio or capability, we are more than happy to discuss representing you. We always start with the candidate first. So, having said all that, Ruchi, in full disclosure, is one of the superior candidates that Akathame represents. So, we want to make sure that you guys realize that she is exceptional at what she does, and that's why I've asked her on the show. So, Ruchi, thank you for coming here. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you for having me, and thank you for this opportunity.
My pleasure. So, you would have thought that companies by now would have all transitioned from Waterfall to Agile. Are there companies still using a Waterfall approach to project management?
There are, from what I've seen, there are many companies that are using Waterfall still as a methodology to deliver projects and deliver value to their stakeholders.
Why do you think that is?
Because it does deliver. It delivers. It's been working, and it's been successful. In fact, several years ago, I have also worked on the Waterfall methodology, and I'm familiar with it. So it does make projects successful. There are successful launches, and companies have been operating a certain way for a long time.
Okay. So then tell us, what's the difference, if we could, what is the difference between an Agile, what's the difference? So when somebody says transformation, digital transformation, that's very different from Agile transformation or Agile approach. What are the key differences, very high level, without getting into any details?
Right. Digital transformation would be, you need, it's more technical. It's all technology oriented. You would be changing the infrastructure, the foundational technology within the company and you'd be upgrading your servers and capacity and doing load testing and such. The Agile transformation, which is the implementation of the Agile methodology, or the Agile is a mindset. The way you describe Agile is it's a set of principles that allow teams to, innovate, learn, and adapt. It's test and learn culture, and so that's what it is. And the timeframes are significantly small. There are ways of doing Agile, and most companies tend to adapt either Kanban or Scrum as a way or a process of implementing in the Agile fashion. And that's what it is. And a team may decide to start doing development and doing delivery within a 2-week time frame or a 3-week time frame, depending on what they're comfortable with. The good thing is that Agile is very flexible. And everything in terms of, doing the requirements, which is the discovery phase in Waterfall, doing the development, doing the testing, and doing the deployment pretty much happens concurrently. Requirements are written, which in the form of stories. What makes the story successful is also, it's called the acceptance criteria. That is also part of the story. And, the developer understands the story and develops it, the QA specialist would go ahead and test it, and the release engineer or the deployment lead would deploy it. But there's so much flexibility in Agile. The team can decide whether they want to, deliver the end result in X number of sprints or after every sprint. And that flexibility allows for the teams to get creative. Yeah.
So what is an Agile coach then? What does an Agile coach do, and what is your role on that team?
So an Agile coach is exactly there for that purpose, for coaching the team, following the principles, the value system, the methodology correctly, and supporting the team and keeping them motivated and encouraged. Taking them past what are called impediments, which are blockers. Something comes in the way because of which I cannot do further development. The coach and the scrum master would actually get together with the team and figure out ways to get ahead, so resolve the issue, work on it together. And it's all about collaboration, The coach would often do trainings, because when an organization is going through the transformation, they need a lot of training. And the training is not something, I believe, once done and finished. You continue the trainings. You revisit, improvise the course content, and you deliver it again. Because
stop right there. Hold up for a second. So this is really interesting. So when you talk about training, are you talking about training your team or training the organization that's going to be part of either feeding information to the team or receiving information from the team? Who do you train?
Actually, it's everybody. A coach can often look after more than one team. So there will be several teams that will be working on different types of products and platforms, and a coach is responsible for making sure their journey is smooth. And so the coach would attend different ceremonies or meetings that the teams have and identify where the gaps are, where the training is required, where support is required, and develop the course content and thereby deliver. There are enterprise level coaches as well, who would train the executives on what's coming, what this transformation would bring. So often in large organizations, there would be coaches at the level of teams where you're looking after teams. Then there are ones that are more senior, could be at the enterprise level. And there could be more senior ones, which could, be dedicated to higher level executives and the C-suite and the overall strategy development for transforming the entire, organization.
And that's what you do.
That's what I do. I also work at the team level. I've actually worked across to transform and help where and plug myself in and do what's needed. And having played the role of a product owner and a scrum master in the past helps to understand what the possible struggles are, where the motivation is needed, and it makes the struggles and the challenges more real because I've lived those roles before in different projects.
So that gives you a leg up almost, right? To step into that role, being empathetic and understanding what goes into those roles and the product for those roles. So that for those various roles. Okay.
That's true. Because what happens in an agile newly transformed team is that it's all new to them. It's all entirely new. Their roles have changed. Their day looks different. Their calendars have different meetings. Those meetings have different names. One is called a stand-up. One is a sprint planning. One is refinement, backlog refinement. The other is sprint review. Then there's a retrospective. They didn't have those meetings on their calendars before during the Waterfall days. The way those meetings are run is very different. and it takes time to start running your meetings differently, keeping them precise and on target, and deliver value in those meetings themselves. It takes time. So the change is new, the day is new, the calendar looks new, like I said, and the roles have changed. Some roles are more clearer than others. Within a team, there would be developers, there would be QA engineers, there would be scrum master, a product owner. But then there are other functional managers that had a different set of responsibilities in the waterfall days, which have changed roles and responsibilities in the world of agile. And so it's important to understand all that it's a change, and like all of us go through changes, it's not always easy.
Yeah. And so some roles that I didn't hear on that agile team, and I think this is really good. So if we're working with hiring managers who aren't familiar with this but know that they want to make that switch, right? So how does an agile coach and how does an agile is it called an agile team, or is it at the product development team?
They would be actually scrum teams. Yeah, they would be scrum teams, and they would have all these meetings that I just called out: the sprint planning meeting, the retrospective, the daily stand-ups, etc. They would have a team charter as well. And because like I said, there is flexibility within Agile. The frequency of meetings and the how long they are, etc., is all something that they're all parameters that the teams can decide. So there are must-haves, and then there are flexibilities.
And so you mentioned part of that team being a product owner, possibly a developer. Where does user experience, where does design fit into all of that, and content and all of that?
Right. No, that's a very good question. Like I said, Scrum teams can have different end goals. If a team has a goal where you require dedicated UX team member, dedicated designers, dedicated content strategists, for example, or content writers, then those team members will be part of your core team. Otherwise, there's a concept called shared services, where these experts are shared by a number of teams because they are not required for all sprints, or their time is valuable if shared across teams, providing value across the organization.
And so, okay, so that makes sense now. So you've got a dedicated resource, whether they're part of that team or part of a shared services team, and you're all working together to solve the most urgent issues on that product together, right?
Right.
Something that I absolutely love about I did get some agile training, and I think the most important part of all of it, as far as I'm concerned, for me as an end user, was how to run a meeting. The meeting format for agile is brilliant. What I learned is that if you don't have questions to answer, you don't meet.
That's true. That's true.
I can tell you how many meetings I've canceled since that training.
Yeah. It's all about testing and learning, focusing on the customer, collaboration, developing iteratively, and releasing frequently. And you're right about these meetings. They run differently, and you can decide as a team. And there's something called a working agreement or a team charter, where you can write down the rules of how that particular Scrum team would run, and everybody has a say in that because it's a team charter. It's our working agreement, and the coach can facilitate that session as well. Basically, the team would then go ahead and write whether they want to have daily stand-ups or meet maybe twice a week. How long should their retrospective meetings be? Should they be in the morning or at another time when developers are done with their morning meetings, across the globe. They want to meet with the other side of the world. They probably want their morning hours free. So those kinds of adjustments are very possible. Grooming meetings, how grooming or backlog refinement. That's just to elaborate on that for folks who aren't clear. Backlog is a list of your requests from the product owner. So the product owner thinks that, in order of priority, there should be certain features or services that need work before others. And so those features and services are listed on the top. And so the meaning of backlog refinement is that you would have those sessions lasting from an hour to maybe 2.5 hours, where the entire team sits together and studies the backlog and understands what the requirements are, what the acceptance criteria is, and whether it's a feature that needs to be deployed, at the end of the 2 or 3 week time period, or can wait and be deployed together with another feature, which will take maybe another 3 sprints. And so those agreements come into play as the requirements are being understood in the backlog refinement sessions. So you can decide in your working agreement how long you want to meet on a refinement session, because there's no end to requests. Backlogs can be really long, and you can go on for days. But there's a limit to how much you can concentrate at a stretch, and therefore the team can decide that we only want to meet once a week for 1 hour, or we want to meet 2 hours in 2 weeks or something.
And so let's bring this conversation up, make it more current, because where I'm missing some dots here is what happened to the business analyst role. Is the business analyst role now one with product owner?
No, no, teams do have business analysts. Product,
that role has not been eliminated. Okay.
Yeah, product owner is, as the name says, in charge of the product. That I own this product, and it needs certain features and certain functions to be developed or enhanced or redesigned, or we are designing a new product. And, based on the discussions happening company-wide, this is what the product should look like based on stakeholder requirements. And this is what it should do. And so they create the product roadmap. And the product roadmap is pretty much quarterly. Based on the quarterly results the product manager has to give to their stakeholders and management, and the quarterly roadmap is then broken down into the backlog. So each feature is then written about. So what we are doing away with is the long business requirements document, the 25 page long business requirements document that used to take, I don't know, X number of months, maybe several weeks to write, and then several weeks to develop, and then, test, and then ultimately you deploy something that the product owner says, oh, that's not what I meant. So, that time has already been lost. It's where Scrum team would then sit with the product owner, understand their requirements. There would be a dialogue, there would be collaboration. The role of the business analyst is pretty much still the same, but now we are writing the requirements together with the product owner, studying our systems and analyzing them, and working with the product owner to also coach them and have them understand how the systems work. And if you want this delivered faster, then we would have to, this is the analysis. Please incorporate it in your story, and here's the design diagram. Let's have a design session with the development team. Let's collaborate and explain this to them. And if the team suggests that the design needs to change based on the analysis and your requirements, then we'll do that first, versus working on the feature.
Does the Agile Coach, this is interesting to me. So does an Agile Coach, are you a peer to the product team? It seems like everybody's a peer, but you are pulling. You're the puppeteer that makes sure, for lack of a better word, you're the person who organizes everything and makes sure that everybody's on track to meeting that end goal. So why would an organization, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you're right. It is a flat team. It's a flat team. The Scrum Master is often known as the servant leader. That's the role. So you're working with the team and leading. The Agile Coach is mostly like saying, giving them inputs and supporting them in terms of coaching. If there is technology coaching required because some infrastructure is changing, which is required for this new product, then the coach can even bring in a senior technologist to deliver the coaching and the right subject matter to the team.
Got it.
And so the coach should pave the path to success and make sure the team has what they need.
So you are a true coach, like a sports coach, football coach, or that's what I'm thinking. That's really what your role is. So tell me, what is an implication if a company, and you actually alluded to that, where it used to take months for requirements to be approved and tested and all that other stuff, and it's now broken down to a couple of weeks, right? So what is the actual implication to an organization if they don't move from Waterfall to Agile, or don't consider moving a part of their product development to a new development process?
The company would soon learn that often it happens that one function, one part of the organization is following Waterfall and the other part of the organization has moved to Agile. They'll start to see the difference pretty quickly if that's happening, because they'll start to see that the value delivered is much faster in the Agile world versus Waterfall. And in today's world where we are all socially connected, we are all so well connected across and globally. So, the stakeholders don't necessarily have the time and patience to wait. Companies don't have the time and patience to wait 6 months on for a product delivery, for a website redesign or new product development, what have you. It's easier to start developing and demoing, incorporate feedback and continue development. And that's why Agile is called iterative. And most stakeholders enjoy that. They enjoy it to see something, because requirements can be written when they are actually, analyzing the systems and in collaboration. But then when they actually see the real product, then they actually start to improvise the product itself right in the beginning stages versus waiting, 6 months onwards and saying, no, I didn't want a green door, I wanted a red one, or this doesn't look quite good and exactly as I imagined.
This sounds like such common sense, Ruchi. Honestly, really, right? I mean, and this is how today's world operates. We want to see results as quickly as we can, right? And there's all kinds of concepts that prove that to be the best way to go. Fail fast, right? Fail fast, so that you can move forward quicker. And so, when we look at, if you were to be sitting in front of a senior leader of an organization right now, and they are just thinking about the Agile methodology. They know that they should do this. They're maybe under 100 million in revenue, and they're still figuring out how to get started. Where do you begin to adopt this new, to them? Agile's been around for a long time. This is not something that's actually new,
right?
But it may be new to some companies. So what would you say to them on how you would get them started? How would you help them make that transition from Waterfall to Agile?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The recommendation is always to start small on a change. It's always recommended that you start with one team, so identify the product that one prototype team, let's call it, should work on, and put the right team members in it, developers, UX, QA, designers, content strategists, what is the skill sets that are needed to work on that product, which the organization would know really well, because either ways they would have been working on a waterfall project for that product anyways. Start there and start with a good scrum master on that team. Often, somebody within the team would sign up to be one, a project manager, a program manager, or even a developer, and start running that one team with the right amount of coaching and the right amount of support and everything else that they need to support their agile journey. And you will monitor the results, and when they do the demos, you'll start seeing what they're delivering, how quickly, and compare it with what's happening across your other projects. And starting small is always the way to do it.
Okay. So we do have a question from the audience. So let's go ahead. Can you believe we've only got like 4 minutes left? That's how fast this goes. Yeah. So you both mentioned quite so often the term acceptance criteria. Can you please tell us more about the process of how they are created for both sides of the organizations and product owners?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I want to pronounce, is it Igor or Igor? I'm not sure. So, but thank you very much for joining, and thanks for your question. Ruchi, to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Igor, for the question. I hope I said your name right. Acceptance criteria is often part of the story that's being written, and stories are the requirements that the product owner is putting together. The story is not supposed to be very long, so it's often four or five lines within a tool that the organization decides to use to support their agile journey. And acceptance criteria is a set of bullet items, 3 to 4, often advised, keep them short and specific, that make that story successful. So if the developer starts to develop the feature described in that story, let's say, what makes the story successful? What makes that feature successful? It should be green. It should respond in a certain way when it's clicked. It should come up with certain comments. There should be a tooltip, or what makes it a failed story. So you can write acceptance criteria in 2 ways. What makes the ultimate feature successful once it's developed based on the requirements, or what makes it fail. Often it's easier to write what makes it successful, so it's easier to comprehend as well. So that's what acceptance criteria is, that I will accept the above feature developed if it adheres to these 4 or 5, list of criteria.
Great. Thank you. So I have one last question as we close out our 30 minutes together. Mm-hmm. What happens when there's a disagreement on what's important in the stories, on which feature to actually focus on first? And we know that we've got user data. We know that we've got our research. We know what our users are saying. And I would assume that the user speaks, right? But what if the user isn't right?
Right. So that's where the keyword collaboration comes in. So when we're sitting in a room and we are doing our backlog refinement session, the product owner is reading the requirements that they have gathered. So the product owner is forever writing the backlog or refining the backlog on their own or collaboratively anyways. But when they're in the meeting room, in the actual ceremony, they're called in agile terms, the questions will be asked by the developers. The logic will be stated, and oftentimes the product owner is flexible enough to understand, take some questions that they didn't have answers to back to the stakeholders and present what works and what doesn't based on our infrastructure or technology platform or usability data, and often come back with a refined story or a broken up story or a reprioritized story.
Got it.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, I can imagine that it does. Which leads me, I'm sorry, I thought that was my last question, but this is really my last question. You're so calm, Ruchi. And you're so articulate, and every word matters. How can you remain calm when you've got all of these things happening simultaneously, and you might be overseeing many teams, right? And how do you compartmentalize all that to still remain calm?
It's partially my personality, I can say. Thank you. I take that as a compliment.
It's a big compliment.
Yeah, thank you. Partially maybe personality, but the other thing is that you learn over the years that you are really there to support the organization. You're just really there to support the organization. And when we walk into a change, there will be friction and questions, and change is never easy to folks who've been working a certain way, for a long number of years. So it's always good to remain calm and take off the pressure somewhere else, maybe outside, go running and do some yoga. There are other ways of taking that out, but it's a difficult journey, but it can be really, really easy through collaboration and support. And most people understand that within the organization.
I'd be eating sheet cake, a lot of it. Ruchi, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and your insight. And I truly do hope that people who are working in this domain or wanting to learn more about this domain are moving to become senior practitioners within that Agile practice find some help, which I'm sure they will, in your words and your insight. Thank you so much. You guys have a great afternoon, and I will see you on the next Live with Lee, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you very much.